Welcome, everybody. We're just doing some office hours. I'm going to be working on kind of fleshing out this Azure CDN bicep bundle that I started like a month ago. So I'm just going to be working on that today, trying to get this up and running in Massdriver. And then answering any questions that you guys have. Post them in the chat if you have them. Happy to chat about them. Right now, I'm just kind of trying to switch up some music that we have here. Sounds good. Okay, so let's see what we have here. So I have my bundle deploying in Massdriver, but it's not actually deploying anything. So I need to find out why. Let's refresh what we have going on here. So we have a param of object. Let's do mass bundle build. Okay, so I'm gonna do a lint too, just in case. We're building out CDN profile and a CDN endpoint. Yes, for endpoints, doing this cool stuff. Yep, this looks good. Param profile object. And profile. Yeah. That looks good. Okay. So let me just do a publish real quick. See if I can get this up and running in Massdriver. I can go ahead and share what I'm looking at here. This is okay. We actually have a provisioner error. Okay, this is good. You know, something I love StreamYard, but something that's kind of weird with it is I can't I can't switch my screen share live. I have to stop my screen share and then go through the process of sharing the screen again in order to share something new. That's my only complaint about StreamYard. Other than that, everything has been fantastic. So I have an error, and I have a feeling it might be in here. So let's take a look. Provisioner, param, endpoints. Okay, this looks good. That looks good. Let's go ahead and add these wildcards. Come on. Copilot. What I'm going to do is I'm going to deploy this bicep template locally, just to see if I run into like any basic things first. That way I can eliminate I forget, I don't create a resource group, so I need to create a resource group. AZ create name local Azure CDN test location West. Cool. AZ deployment group local Azure CDN test. That's all I need. Deploy is misspelled or not recognized by the system. Oh, deployment. Okay. Declared multiple times. Identify profile, declared multiple times. Let's try that. Okay, so unused parameter. We do use it. Okay. This expression is referencing its own declaration, which is not allowed. Okay. So it's talking about lines 10. It's referencing its own declaration. Oh, I see what's going on here. I see. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So let's do this. Yes. Or the headline, this may move workloads back to private cloud from public cloud. Source Barclays CIO survey. How do you think this will impact the cloud landscape that we're currently on? That's a good question. I wonder if I can post this here. So I'll read it again. 83% of enterprises plan to move workloads back to private cloud from public cloud. How do you think this will impact the cloud landscape that we are currently working on? That's a good question. I don't really know. How do you think this will impact the cloud landscape we are currently on? So by private cloud, I'm wondering if you're talking about data centers, like their own privately managed data centers. If that's the case, I don't really see that being a feasible alternative, because the problem that we're having with data centers, or the problem that we had with data centers, which was causing a lot of companies to move into the cloud, it was hard to manage. It was hard to deploy stuff. It was expensive. It was hard to troubleshoot. You had ownership over hardware, which at the end of the day, was the type of expense that accounting just wasn't really for. And then you also had the problem of aging out hardware and replacing old hardware with new hardware. So if by private cloud you're referring to like privately owned data centers, I see that being a necessary step for some companies who have specific requirements, but I don't really think that's going to affect the public cloud that much. There are startups that are popping up all the time. We see it at Massdriver. The startups that are just like every single day. Every single YC batch, there's hundreds and hundreds of new startups coming, and they all need to be able to manage their own cloud infrastructure and applications. And they're not going to be able to do that in a private cloud data center. It's just not feasible. So the fact that AWS and Azure and GCP exist to serve most of hardware needs as far as running applications in the cloud, if some subset of enterprises move to privatized data centers because that's where they need to go, I don't think that's going to impact much. Companies are still going to grow into enterprises, and AWS and Azure and GCP are going to continue to serve the companies that are on those cloud services. I don't think it's going to change much. Honestly, I think any company that moves into a privatized data center, they're going to be reminded of their struggles. Nostalgia is going to hit them right in the face. But that's just my two thoughts. Yeah. I think it's kind of ridiculous if they're moving to privatized data centers at this point. Especially since AWS just recently purchased, or I guess somewhat recently purchased 100,000 GPUs from NVIDIA. And now they're trying to upsell all of this, this AI boom, and they're kind of struggling. So I think that they're going to do their best to make these GPUs as easy to use as possible for AI workloads, so that these companies, whether they're enterprise or startup companies, have the ability to quickly run these workloads on these shared GPUs. And since we're having this big AI boom right now, and a large shift of technology is going towards having some type of AI component, unless you have billions of dollars to invest in GPUs in your private data center, yeah, I don't really see that that panning out too well for 83% of enterprises. It's a good question, and I'm really happy you asked. Took me a minute to really think about it, but yeah. Do you have a link to that survey? I'm very curious. I'd like to read it some more. Whoever posted that in the comments, if you're able to post a link to that survey, I would love to be able to dig into it. Okay, so we need to update profiles. So profile fig. Fig. Okay, let's see if this works. Actually, let me run it over here. The resource type segment CDN endpoints is invalid. Nested resources must specify single type segment. Optional can specify an API version. Single type segment? Okay. So how do I want to do this? Oh, it doesn't like commas after these, huh? That's right, biceps. Interesting like that. What else is it complaining about? Is declared multiple times. Property output is declared multiple times. Property output. Expected the colon. Okay. If I run this again, it should clear up a lot of that. Yeah, okay. 43. Expected a new comma. Oh, it needs that closing line, right? No. Yeah, okay. Okay, so which ones do we have left? 48. What you expected the colon character dislocation? Yeah, I got these backwards. What did I do? This is right. Expected a literal value in array object predecessor expression or function called dislocation. Okay, I'll come back to that. So I need to clarify the resource type segment Microsoft.cdn endpoints is invalid. Optional can specify an API version using the format type. So I wonder if it is looking for this because it's a sub type. No? Okay. So let's look this up. Okay, so I'm just going to back this out into its own thing. Oops. Oops. Okay. Unique resource or deployment name is required when looping. Property parent is not allowed on objects. That's weird because they they have it right in the example. Permission property assets depends on. Yes, this is an inaccuracy in the documentation. Okay. Let's simplify this. How can I simplify this? This is exactly what I'm doing. This is weird. Must be referenced in at least one of the valid expressions from the property name or scope. After searching the actual survey, seems like everyone is just posting one image. Doesn't let me copy this comment. Okay, maybe that's another thing I don't like about StreamYard is I can't like copy that comment. That's so weird. All right, let me find it real quick. X.com. Oh God. Okay, I'll share this. I'll share this on. Let me stop my screen and share this here. We can talk about this. So, not surprising, 83% of enterprises plan to move workloads back to private cloud from public cloud. It was well overdue for bean counters to finally start counting those clouds, and unsurprisingly, a lot of them find a grotesquely expensive castles in the sky. That's true. Interesting. What are people saying? I don't have X, maybe that's why I can't see. The big cloud exit. How long is this? Pretty long. I'll read a little bit. Just over a year ago, we announced our intention to leave the cloud. So this is David Hansen. Who's he from? Basecamp. They're from Basecamp. Okay. So we then shared our complete 3.2 million cloud budget for 2022 and the fact that we were going to build our own tooling rather than pay for overpriced enterprise service contracts. The mission was set. A month later, we placed an order for $600,000 worth of Dell servers to carry out our exact oof, and then did the math to conservatively estimate $7 million in savings over the next 5 years. What happens when those Dell servers get old, I wonder? We also have detailed the larger values beyond just cost that was driving our cloud exit, things like independence and loyalty to the original ethos of the internet. Still in February, we announced a new tool that had bootstrapped in a few weeks to take us out of the cloud without giving up all the innovation and containers and operating principles from the cloud. This was the introduction of Camel. Shortly thereafter, all of the hardware we needed for our cloud exit arrived on pallets in our 2 geographically dispersed data centers, all 4,000 vCPUs, 8,000 gigabytes of RAM, 384 terabytes of NVMe storage. I don't think they have any need for GPUs. I don't see any calls for GPUs here. And then in June, it was done. We had left the cloud. To say the journey was controversial, putting it mildly, millions of people read the updates on LinkedIn, X, and the following mailing list. Got thousands of comments asking for clarification, providing feedback, and expressing incredulity. I'm not familiar with that word. State of being unable to believe something interesting. Over our nerve to zig when others are still busy catching up to the zag. But the proof was in the pudding. Not only did we complete our cloud exit quickly, customers scarcely noticed anything, and soon the savings starting to mount. Already in September, we secured $1 million in savings on the cloud bill, as the reserved instances where you prepay for a whole year in advance to get better pricing started to expire, the bill just kept collapsing. Cool. What do they have here? OpenSearch, RDS, EC2, Elasticache, ECR, load balancing. So this looks like their costs in AWS were diminishing as they exited the cloud, but that doesn't mean that like their overall cost was diminishing. There's like the difference in finance between operational expense, and I forget what the other one was, like ownership expense or something like that. So I'd like to see a graph comparison of their cloud costs going down while their expense for owning and managing their hardware goes up. Like as their cloud expenses go down, right? They are increasing their expenses to purchase and maintain hardware. Like it's not just purchasing, you know, what was it, $600,000 worth of Dell servers or whatever, but you're now having to purchase the manpower to manage, to patch. Essentially, like you're shifting your cost from giving it to AWS. Instead, you're giving it to another entity to manage these VMs. So I'd be very curious to see a comparison. Which brings us to today. The cloud exit is done, but the questions keep coming, and oh, do they keep coming. So rather than answer the same points over and over and over, I thought I'd compile a good old-fashioned list of facts. Okay, let's go through some facts, and then we can move on from this. Would your hardware savings be swallowed by a bigger team payroll? Hey, that was my question. No, because we didn't change the team composition after our cloud exit. The same people who were operating Hey and Basecamp and the other apps in the cloud are now operating them on our own hardware. This is a central deceit of the cloud marketing, and that's all going to be so much easier for you that you hardly need anyone to operate it. I've never seen it, not at 37 Signals, not anyone from anywhere else running large internet applications. The cloud has some advantages, but it's typically not in the reduced operations headcount. So I think what he's talking about here is the team composition for like developing and running applications, but I don't think he's including the team that has to manage the underlying hardware, right? Like you need systems engineers, you need system administrators or operations personnel to be able to run and manage the underlying operating system and the hardware that these applications and databases are going to be running on. So that's still an unanswered question. Why didn't you just optimize your cloud bill instead? Our cloud bill used to be twice as large as the highly optimized, monthly scrutinized, heavily haggled bill we detailed in the 3.2 million for 2022. We had squeezed just about every drop from that lemon, and it was a ton of reoccurring work to do. That's part of why I'm so bullish on the concept of cloud exits for mid-size and above software companies. It's extremely easy to spend 2 to 3 to 4 times the amount we are blowing every month on a business with the same number of customers as we have, which means an even higher potential for savings at most. Let's see. Cloud written native application instead, security. I'm just going through some of these questions here. World-class team, super engineers, building your own data centers. What about racking seconds, pulling out? Who does that? Oh, here we go. So what about racking and stacking servers and pulling network cables? Who does that? So we use a white glove data center service provider called Deft. There are tons of other companies like them, and you pay them to unpack the boxes that arrive from Dell or whoever you buy from straight to the data center, and they stack it and they rack it, and you see the IP addresses come online, just like the cloud, even if it isn't instant. Our operations team basically never set foot in the data centers. They're working remotely from all over the world. Operating experience is far more like that of the cloud than it is in the early days of the internet when everyone drew their own cabling. So I wonder how much they're paying Deft, and I wonder how much they're paying the data center. It could be less. They could be saving money. Overall, it could be a good cost savings for them. I'm not trying to say like, oh yeah, you shouldn't move from public cloud to private cloud because X, Y, or Z. I'm just very curious, like you're shifting your expenses. Before public clouds came along, companies were paying data centers, they were paying operations teams. It was an ongoing expense to upgrade their hardware, to have ownership over these hardware. And that's why moving to public clouds was so intriguing, because you didn't have to worry about the depreciation of your assets over time. That's really what it came down to. You're owning servers, you're owning hardware. When you buy them and you're using them, they're depreciating in value over time in such a rate that you have to continuously buy new hardware and replace that hardware when it becomes obsolete, or buy new components and replace the components in those servers when you scale. And so a lot of that expense and complexity was kind of, I guess, like in a lot of ways, it was just taken care of for you by using the public cloud. And instead of paying money towards ownership and management, maintenance, all of those other things, you're instead paying like one single subscription bill to have a company take care of that for you, right? It's like the difference between buying and managing your own media server and buying the movies on your media server and hosting them on your own media server in-house or data center or whatever, versus subscribing to Netflix, right? Like, which one is easier? Which one is more expensive in the long run? You could argue that over the course of 20 or 50 years, you'll probably save money by managing your own media servers than by subscribing to Netflix every month. But which one's easier? Which one's more convenient? I mean, it's really up to the company, right? So yeah, I'm very curious, like overall, what they're over like a 5-year period, how much money they save by switching the data centers. And if that's the case, then I'd also be curious who the 83% of enterprises are that are moving off of AWS, Azure, GCP into public or into private cloud. Did you factor in what it costs to replace your servers later? Oh yeah, here we go. Yes, we did our math on the basis of servers lasting 5 years. Yep, that's exactly what I was saying. That's conservative. We had servers go 7 to 8 years working great, but 5 years is usually the interval used by most people, and it makes it easy for financial comparisons. But here's the kicker. We spent $600,000 buying a ton of new servers where we've already paid that investment off with the savings secured by leaving the cloud. Ugh, that's kind of unbelievable. So if some amazing technological breakthrough happens next year and we want to buy a bunch of new stuff again, we can easily do that and still be ahead on the math. Interesting. How much are you spending on service contracts and licensing fees? If the cloud is so expensive, why did you ever go there? All right, we'll end it on this one. If the cloud is so expensive, why did you ever go there? Because we bought the marketing pitch. This was going to be cheaper, easier, faster. Only the last promise ever really came through for us. So the fact that it was faster. The cloud makes it really fast to provision a whole fleet of servers, but that's just not something that we do very often, so it's not worth a huge premium. But we spent years trying to unlock the savings from economies of scale and ease of use, but it never really happened. The managed services still need management. The advances from Moore's Law rarely got passed on as savings. In hindsight, I'm actually glad we did give the cloud a proper go. We learned a lot. We improved a lot of our processes as a result, but I do wish we'd done the math a couple years sooner. Okay. This is a good article. I'll go ahead and post this in the chat if anybody wants to give it a read. It's a pretty good one. Yeah, I wish they had posted, like, maybe in one of these links the actual math of their next 5 years and what that compares to. Maybe this one does it. We spent 3.2 million on the cloud. Just under $1 million of that was storing 8 petabytes of files in S3, fully replicated, so it leaves 2.3 mil for everything else. To do $600,000 Dell servers. Which might sound like a lot at the age of the cloud, but it was to amortize that over a conservative 5 years. It's just $120,000 per year. Most of connected power and bandwidth. We currently spend about $60,000 a month on 8 dedicated racks between our 2 data centers through Deft. We purposely over-provisioned our space so that we can actually fit all of these many new servers in the existing racks without needing more space or power. The spend remains at around $720 a year. That's a total of $840 a year for everything: bandwidth, power, and boxes. Amortization schedule of 5 years compared to $2.3 million in the cloud. And we'll have much faster hardware, many more cores, incredibly cheaper NVMe storage, and room to expand it at a very low cost. In round numbers, let's call it savings of $1.5 million a year. Put aside $500,000 for unforeseen expenses over the period, and that's still $7 million saved over 7 years. Any mid-sized SaaS business, above with stable workloads, that does not benchmark their rental bill for servers in the cloud against buying their own boxes, is committing financial malpractice at this point. I suggest you call Dell, then call Deft. This sounds like referral. That's what that sounds like. A referral attempt. Get some real world numbers, make up your own mind. Okay. That was an interesting read. I'm glad we got to go through that a bit. Yeah. That was good. Okay. I'll go ahead and go back to where was I? CDN stuff. So I need to find Oh, it's /profile/CDN endpoints. It's also not CDN, CDN, and then is it /profiles? I think it is. /profiles/endpoints. Okay, we're having a looping error, and that's about it. Can't see, oh, oops, I didn't share my screen. So I made this change, /profile/endpoints. So I have this looping error. What does ye old Google say about this? Iter loops and bicep for item in collection. Yeah, for endpoint and endpoints. I'm doing that right. Using items in an array. This option works in a few scenarios. I want to create an instance for each element in the array. Within the loop, you can use a value of the current array element to modify values. Array elements for endpoint and storage names. Yeah, this is correct. For name in for endpoint and endpoints. We have an array of endpoints, and we're calling endpoint everywhere. Is it yeah, endpoint.hostname, endpoint.http allow, HTTP allowed. Unique resource or deployment name is required when looping. Looking at their error reference. So this is just a warning, really. This isn't even an error. So I can probably ignore this. These two I can't ignore, so was it 018? Active character endless location. For 7, position 10. Oh, because this isn't, yeah. What does it say, LS? Okay, LS3. So we actually just need to do its endpoint, not properties of host name. For endpoint and endpoints, endpoint properties hostname. I wonder if that casing makes a difference. No, I don't think so. Output array for endpoint and endpoints. Like a literal value, an array, an object, or a parenthesized expression, or a function call at this location. Let's see. Azure bicep output array. Properties, oh, is it maybe .origins? No, this is .properties. Origins. Is it looking for that? That's what would make the most sense. Output for loop. I wonder if this is looking for, this is an array, but it's an array of maps. Okay. That makes sense to me. Let's provide a value for MD metadata. Oh boy, it's an object. Fail the parse. Provisioner. That's an object too, right? Yep. An array value for endpoints. Let's do and object value for profile config. Profile. Password. Okay. that should give me enough confidence to republish this and try to deploy. So I'm going to share Massdriver. Come on, buddy. Okay, so error's good. No, error's not so good. Okay. How can I fix this? Back to the terminal. This is profile config, provisioner. I'm at the location. I'm just making sure that this is set up properly. I should probably do I'm doing mass bundle build, mass bundle lint. Basically, those are my shortcuts for it. Profile config. Set up right. It's required. Steps. Path source. Provisioners bicep. Profile config. Skew. Endpoints, and I should do min items 1 just because. Oh, and default. Yep. Items, yeah, endpoint object, origin name, host name, query caching behavior. Okay. Connections. Yep, this looks good. All right, let's try to republish, see what happens. I'm just gonna do mass infra deploy. Just do it from here, it's easier. I'm not even sharing, but sorry guys. That's the other thing, another thing about StreamYard. I think I can change that in the settings. Where is that? Like automatically share. Yeah, automatically add shared screens videos to the stream. Sorry about that, guys. That shouldn't happen going forward with that setting. Okay, so errored out again, same thing. Just deployment failed. Okay. Well, let's do. Actually, let's look at AZ variable variables JSON file. Yeah, this is TF vars. It's not gonna work for bicep, so I need a parameters. Something that parameters of JSON. Okay, we'll call this cdn.parameters.json. Okay, so first parameter name. We'll call this MD metadata. So in here we have name prefix. This is going to be local Azure bicep CDN. Missing value. Oh, it has to be value. What? Oh, okay. So this is MD metadata. Okay, so we can turn. I see what's going on here. Value. Okay, so this is where I can turn it into a map. And okay, yeah, seems right. So I need set name prefix default tags, and this is where I can do MD. Is it? Just do manifest. And then MD project. Cool. MD package. MD targets. I'm gonna run a little bit over. If you guys are still hanging out, I'm gonna run a little bit over time, just to kind of give this an actual shot, because I have an idea of what I'm doing here. So if you guys want to keep hanging out, keep asking questions, welcome to. I'm just gonna work on this for probably like another 20 minutes, and then I'll call it for the stream. Azure Dev, I don't call bicep. Azure CDN. Actually, that's a package. Manifest. Okay, so this is default tags, parameter value. Hopefully this is right. I don't know about nested objects in parameters file, but I'm about to find out. Okay, so I have MD metadata. This one needs to be profile config, and then I need provisioner value location West US. And endpoints. This is an array. Okay, so profile config. This is going to take a value of, this just has skew. So this is going to be a map skew. Sure, I think that's, standard Microsoft. Yeah, we'll do that one. That looks good. And then endpoints. So this is going to take origin name, sure, host name, and query caching behavior not set. Multiple matches multiple schemas when only one must validate. Huh? How does it matches multiple schemas and only one must validate? Oh, I need a value. Right. Yeah. Okay, so value yeah, that looks right. So it's a value of an array of maps. So profile config is an object, right? Profile config, that's an object. Use an object, provisioners object, endpoints, an array. Okay. I think this is right. So now I can deploy it. I should be able to deploy this. So I can do, and then parameters, cdn, oh, I need one for, okay. Azure Service Principal. I don't think I need an actual one because I'm already authenticated with the client. Oh, thanks, dude. Thanks, Copilot. Shit. Subscription. We'll try that. Okay, so subscription, blah, 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 message. At least one resource deployment failed. Invalid template. Unable to process template language expressions from subscription resource group. CDN profiles. Line 39, column 5, the language expression property HTTP allowed doesn't exist. Available properties are origin name, host name, query cache, and behavior. Oh. Is that because of my parameters? Because CDN, and was it CDN endpoint? Is HTTP allowed? Yeah, those are actual parameters. Maybe because they're just not in my in this thing. So it's under endpoint, right? So endpoint. It is. No, that's not what I called it. So this is called HTTP allowed, false, HTTP allowed, false. Let's see if that satisfies it. Invalid tracking ID, exist. Endpoint cannot be created with both. Oh, okay, one of them has to be allowed. That's not what I want. Okay, that's good to know. So I need to add comment here. One HP HTTPS must be allowed. So make dependency. I can do that. Okay, so template output endpoints is not valid. So the output endpoints is not valid. Okay, let's go to endpoints. Properties doesn't exist. Available properties are origin name, host name. Can I just do, what am I doing? Host name and point out host name. Does that work? I mean, I'd like to get it from the resource itself, and I'll fiddle around with that. First, I just need to get this actually up and running. Hey, okay, succeeded. That's pretty sweet. I'm gonna confirm in Azure real quick. Yep, it's there. It's there in Azure. Okay, so now let's go and destroy it. How do I delete the resource again? Is it Delete. I guess create an empty bicep, right? And then AZ deployment. Load complete. So I'm just going to tear it down and then try to deploy it from Massdriver. So this, let's check out what it actually did here. So it deployed all of that, depends on the profile, created the endpoint. So the outputs, okay, so we have an output of Toast.com, that's correct. Output of the profile ID, that's correct. Got the params file. And this is the actual JSON. Okay, I'm happy with that. Looking at this in the console, it's currently deleting, so that's good. The endpoint is currently deleting. Properties. This all looks really good so far. Okay. Let's just go ahead and do a infra deploy. This is looking promising so far. I don't think it ran this long last time. I spoke too soon. Let's see. Did I actually give an error? Nope, not an actual error. That's okay. I made progress. The fact that I got it deploying locally with the configuration needed is pretty good news. So now I can just kind of like fiddle with getting it to deploy in Massdriver, since it's already deploying locally. So that's really good. The tags being null, that might have something to do with it. I can look through this and figure out exactly what properties I'm coming through. All right, I think I'm gonna wrap up the stream. We're 17 minutes over, which is quite all right. Thanks for everyone for joining us today. It was a good time building out an Azure CDN bundle. It was a good time talking about 83% of enterprises moving from public cloud to private cloud, which was a good read. It was cool to talk about. I enjoyed that. So Yeah, we do open office hours the first Wednesday of every month. I typically do them. And it's really just a time for us to kind of hang out, talk about things, um, build some bundles, or I might be working on some other stuff. Sometimes we have other members of my team, like Corey, our CEO, kind of just chat about different things going on. Um, with his podcast. He just started a podcast, um, Platform Engineering podcast. If you guys haven't checked it out, please do so. It's honestly really good. Corey does a great job interviewing his guests. He has some pretty big name guests on there. Like Mitchell Hashimoto was recently on there. Um, Brian Grant, one of the founders of Kubernetes, was on there. I just listened to one the other day about one of the was it the chief marketing officer from Netflix and how they strategized their AWS footprint in order to like optimize running Netflix in the cloud. Honestly, it was my favorite podcast so far. So check it out. Just Google Platform Engineering Podcast. It's on Spotify and all the other podcast apps. All right, guys, thanks for coming by. See you next month. Like you see in the chat, Lou posted about a webinar that we're having next week about migrating OpenTofu or Terraform modules into Massdriver. So please check that out. Links in the chat in order to register. It's a free webinar you guys can attend same time next week. All right, until next time. Thanks, guys. Peace.